It pains me a bit to share this story about this expat because he was a very very close friend of mine. A quick backdrop, he found out about the Philippines when he came across my channel and was looking at retiring and came to the conclusion that he would do his retirement living full-time in the Philippines. So he contacted me and we began our friendship online. He eventually did come to the Philippines about a year later. He had a really good pension, so money was not an issue. He was doing very well. Now, the thing I want to really stress here is that he really was a good guy. In fact, as you'll see as we get into this, it's because he was really almost too nice of a guy that things eventually fell apart for him due to some bad decisions he made once he retired in the Philippines. So he did the usual. He got settled into the Philippines, got an apartment, started figuring his way around, began dating. And at first he was just kind of dating whoever crossed his path and, a few from the dating sites and whatnot. Nothing serious the first year or so, just some dates here and there. Skip forward and he eventually met this woman, a Filipina, who on paper seemed to be a really good option. So he went on 2 or 3 dates with her. She attended church, very involved there. So he thought, given that he was a very Christian man, really a very good man, he thought, well, this could be the one that I've been looking for. So they went on a couple of dates. So as I mentioned, he and I were very close and we would talk every day, either in person, we'd hang out at some of the resorts, or we'd hang out at each other's place or go out and get some dinner or some lunch. He told me about this woman and he wanted to get my impression of her. So he invited me and my then girlfriend to come to his condo place and just kind of have a little pool party. She was going to be there. So we spent the afternoon there at the swimming pool and of course got to meet her and whatnot. Eventually we left at the end of the day, and the following afternoon we met up for lunch, just privately, he and I, so that I could give him some feedback. And so I gave him my honest feedback, and I told him very clearly, and I don't say this of very many people, but I told him, you need to get away from this woman as fast as you can. Now he was surprised because again, she was very involved in her church, seemed to have a decent job. And so he asked me for more detail and I told him, well, I said, number one, she's a very materialistic, duplicitous person. I said, what you're seeing and what I saw are 2 totally different things. You're emotionally involved. I said, what I saw is a person who is pretending to be a normal person. I said, all I see and all I heard out of her was selfishness and narcissism. This person is as fake as plastic. Bottom line, I told him, you cannot trust this woman. She will screw you over. So naturally, he was very surprised and disappointed. We finished up our lunch and just went about our business. And he kept on dating her. Now, the only good thing is that he did get very involved with the church. On his own, he did extracurricular things to help out the church, all on his own. He paid for it out of his own pocket, just to make things nicer for the community and the kids and all that. It wasn't uncommon that he'd be at the church twice a week. So they kept on dating for about another 3 months or so. And all of a sudden, I really wasn't hearing from him anymore. And I just chalked it up to, well, he's got a new relationship with this woman going, against my advice. But again, he's a grown man. He can make his own decisions. And I just figured, well, they're just having their relationship. Well, then I did hear from him, and it was an apology. And he said, well, as you may have seen, which I hadn't seen it yet, but he says, as you may have seen on my Facebook, we posted photos of our wedding. He said, I married this woman, the same woman that I warned him about. So I was pretty shocked, and I told him, well, let's meet up. So we met up and we hung out, and I said, dude, how could you get married? I mean, you know how I feel about her, but nonetheless, how could you get married and not tell me? At least I would have wanted to be there. for you. And his response was, well, she didn't want any foreigners at the wedding. Basically, any foreigners that were his friends, she did not want at the wedding. Now, that was a huge red flag, and it's exactly the sort of thing that I would have expected from her, to control and isolate him from anyone that would expose her. So she insisted that he ostracize all his friends from coming to the wedding so that it was only her family. So now there they were. The damage had been done. He's now married to this woman. And he's still trying to convince me, well, you don't know her like I know her. She can be so sweet, and now she's going to move in with me, and it's going to be great. You'll see. So she moved in with him, and again, I didn't hear much from him for about 2 or 3 months, until one day he contacted me again, and he said, you have got to come to my place. I need you, please, just drop what you're doing. Come now to my condo right now. So I jumped on my bike, I got there, and the first thing I noticed is she's not around. So we sat on the couch and I said, okay, tell me what happened. What's going on? Well, big surprise. She became extremely controlling, was over the top jealous, constantly going through his phone, going through his laptop, smelling his clothes without any reason to do so. He's not that kind of a guy. And he thought that by satisfying her curiosity, she would calm down, but she only got worse and worse and worse. Until finally, now keep in mind, he's a really patient, easygoing, just the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. But he finally had enough of it. And he told her, you need to calm down and start acting like a normal person. And she said basically, well, this is who I am and you're stuck with me. And I'm going to keep on you. I don't trust you. Blah, 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 blah. So he said, get out. So she packed a bag and took off to her parents' house. So it turns out that in part of the arguing and all that, she had started to mention private conversations that he and I had had, very specific things. And I said, well, that's our private conversation on PM. Why did you show that to her? He said, I never did show it to her. I don't know how she knows, but somehow she knows everything that's going on my phone. Well, this was just the beginning of discovering that what she had done is put a keylogger program and a spyware into his phone so that she could see everything that he was saying and doing. And the crazy thing is, he wasn't saying or doing anything that was wrong. This is what a narcissistic person does. A person with NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder. They crave control, they want to put other people on the defense, and they want to get a rise out of other people. This way, the other person, in this case him, is so busy defending himself, he never gets around to holding her accountable for her actions and her craziness and her high demands and her high maintenance. That never gets discussed because she's constantly got him on the defense. Now, I did over 20 years of computer repair since 1989. I know my way around a computer. So I said, let me see your phone. So I ran it through, found the spyware, got rid of it all, and I told him, this woman has a mental disorder. This is not just your basic jealousy-filled Filipina. This woman has NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So after he kind of got his mind wrapped around that, and I began explaining why she does what she does, why she has a very fake persona at the church, and yet does the exact opposite in private with him, treating him in about the most unchristian way you could think of. As he started kind of coming around and seeing for himself firsthand how abusive she was, he ended up saying, well, I'm married to her now, and I got to do my best. I got to somehow make this work. I got to tame this shrew. I got to somehow, maybe through her family, convince her to start behaving like the godly woman she pretends to be in public. So I told him, well, good luck with that, but If you ever need me, I'm here for you. So then skip forward another 2 months. He'd already moved her back in after their short little spat, and it just got even worse. She was enraged at him for removing the spyware. Actually, she hated me for it, but took no accountability for the fact that she shouldn't have been spying on him in the first place. Again, classic NPD behavior. So it kept escalating and escalating to where he finally called me. He said, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I'm getting an annulment. Now, for him to reach the end of his patience, I knew it had to get really bad. In fact, it got so bad, he moved out of the city to a whole other island and got a condominium in a whole other island just to physically get away from her. Now, it just worked out. I had moved to the same island, same city, there in Cebu, after he left her. So he contacts me and says, I don't know how she's doing it, but now she's getting photos from my phone, and I'm way over here in Cebu, and she's a whole island away. So I go over to his apartment, and I checked his phone again. The spyware was back on there again. I said, don't you have a screen lock on your phone? He said, well, yeah, but it's my fingerprint. I said, well, all she had to do was put your finger up to the phone while you were asleep, and that's how she got the spyware back in again. So then I dug into his laptop, found more spyware there. She was getting snapshots like every 30 seconds whenever he was active on his laptop. Plus, she had the passwords to his Google account. And I told him, I said, why do you have your phone set up to automatically upload all your pictures right to your Google Drive? Well, he's not the most tech-oriented guy. He didn't even know that was set on. In fact, she may have been the one who turned it on. So now she was keeping photos. Now that they were separated and he filed for the annulment, he went back to dating, and now she was getting all these pictures that he was taking with him on a date with some other Filipina. And of course, giving him living hell about it and telling the whole church, oh, look at all the bad things he does. I don't know why he does this. Why did he leave me? And why is he with other women? She really spun it around to make him look like he was the problem. So by this time, he'd already hooked up with a very good attorney, gotten the annulment underway, and just went about trying to date and make the best of the situation. But she repeatedly kept getting into his accounts. And I had been telling him, well, change your passwords. But she was getting notifications of the new passwords. So that's when I tell him, okay, this is what we got to do. All in the same hour, we're going to change all your passwords to everything. We're going to baseline your phone and sell it along with the SIM card. We're going to baseline your laptop back to factory settings, and that should scrape her out of accessing your data. So that's what we did all in one afternoon, knocked it all out. And of course, she was livid. So then she took it upon herself to create a fake Facebook account of another Filipina that didn't look like her, contacted my previous girlfriend and told her that her and I had been having some kind of an affair for a whole year. That's how vicious and evil this woman is. She hated me because I was the one person standing between her abusing him and him. I eventually was on record and gave a personal deposition in his annulment case, detailing the abuse that I had observed and my personal assessments of her. A psychologist also examined the case, and the court decided there was enough evidence to declare that she was mentally imbalanced and granted the annulment. Now, by this time, my buddy was in about his fourth year or so in the Philippines. He finally got the annulment and said to me, well, now that I have the annulment, I'm going to go back to the city where she lives. And I told him, do not do that. He said, well, but she's been speaking really nicely to me. And I said, you shouldn't even be talking to her in the first place. Again, he was too nice. He gave her his new phone number. He said, well, I just want us to be friends on good terms. I said, you can't do that with this kind of person. And she coaxed him into coming back to the same city she was in, and naturally, once he did that, she made his life a living hell. Now, about this time, he became very ill. His condition progressed quickly, and before you know it, the last time I saw him, we got together 2 or 3 times there at Ayala Mall in Cebu. We got to see each other one last time and have some lunch. He went back to the States to be with his family and get some medical care, but pretty much there was nothing the doctors could do for him anymore, and he passed away. So from the time that he decided to move to the Philippines to the time that he ran out of time was about 6 years. And it pains me that half of that time he had to deal with the lunacy of this unhinged woman. She brought him nothing but stress and aggravation. So the message I want to leave you with is a few things. Number one, life is short. You don't know how much time you've got left. Number two, when you run into a toxic person, doesn't matter if it's a Filipina you're dating or some neighbor, whoever, the best way to deal with toxic people is cut them out of your life. Don't talk to them, don't converse with them, don't date them, don't engage in conversation. If you have to, move to the other side of town. Move to another island, because there is no fixing these people. I've done a lot of study on NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, and every psychologist I've listened to agrees there is no therapy for this condition. The person is 200% convinced everyone else is the problem, they don't have a problem. And because they believe they don't have a problem, they have no intention of fixing it because there's nothing to fix in their mind. So because these people are so unhinged in their own little twisted, dark reality, you're wasting your time trying to find peace with this person. The only peace you will have is to cut them out of your life. And the third thing is that it's great to be a good guy, a nice guy, but you can't be a doormat to people who abuse you. You have to stand up for yourself and tell people you have crossed the line. You are no longer welcome in my life. I don't want any more of your behavior. And sadly, there's too many guys who think, oh, well, that's rude. That's unkind. No, it's not. When somebody is being abusive to you, you have every right to tell them to go hit the road. They're not welcome in your life anymore. So if anything else, I hope that my buddy's traumatic experience will cause you to take a second look at any abusive, toxic relationships you may have run into and take the steps necessary to cut those people out of your life.